$49,000. That's what one of our members in a call like this found inside of a business he was already running. There was no new customers. We didn't do a rebrand. We didn't do some fancy marketing campaign, and there was no new menu. There was nothing he didn't already have. He just couldn't see it. He'd been working 14-hour days across 3 separate venues. He had a young family at home, and he was running hard like a Mack truck towards a concrete wall. He was doing everything right and by every measurement that he knew, and he was still losing. The kind of losing where your revenue looks great, but the profit doesn't seem to be there at the end of the week, where you work your ass off all week, and then you look at the bank account and you think, where did that money go? So 5 weeks after joining this program, his coach ran a calculation on a live call like this. One small change to how his team talked to customers at the counter, $49,000 a year, straight to his bottom line. It was already in his business. It was already within reach. He just needed someone to show him where to look. And that's what this video is about. It's not theory. It's not mindset. And it's not the generic stuff that you've heard 1,000 times by every single restaurant coach in this industry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through exactly what happens week by week inside our Foodie Coaches Elite Mastermind program, what the journey actually looks like, what changes and why and when. Because if there's $49,000 sitting in a fish and chip shop waiting to be found, I want you to know what's sitting in yours as well. So, my name's Tim. I'm the founder, head coach of Foodie Coaches. And before we get into the how, I want to take some time to draw something out for you, because there's 2 types of owners, but we're all on a journey as owners. And we're climbing mountains while we're on that. So I want you to picture a mountain. The summit up there, that's the business that you started. That's the business you actually wanted in the first place. And I can guarantee you one of these things is profit, and the other is freedom. A business that runs without you chained to it while it's making good money. Now, there are 2 types of owners standing at the bottom of this thing. And the first one is losing time. Money might be okay, but they're owners without time. They're in the business every single day, every hour it's open. Opening, closing, covering shifts, putting out fires, and 90% of the day is like frontline work. And deep down, owners in this space know that someone else can do it. And they're not short of money necessarily. They're just short of life. Might be missing their kids, might be missing mornings with their family, missing the reason why they started their business in the first place. Now, the next person, the second one on the right over here, is money. Life's not too bad. They're working just as hard, maybe even harder, 14-hour days, but the profit isn't there or isn't where it should be. The revenue looks okay on paper. And then when Friday comes around or Monday comes around, they check the account and think, where did it all go? Because the money isn't staying in the accounts in the business. Owners in this position, they can feel it deep down. They just can't see where it's going or what's happening. So we've got 2 completely different people here. We've got different venues with different problems. One's drowning in hours and the other one's drowning in costs, and maybe costs and hours. But here's what they've got in common. They're both standing at the bottom of a mountain. They're both standing at the bottom of a journey, looking up at the same summit. And both of them have been trying to climb this summit the same way for years. Alone, working harder, got their heads down, and just hope if they both push a little bit more, they're gonna get there. And the truth is you can't get there by repeating the same thing over and over again. So no one summits these things alone. And it's not how it works, and it's not how it's meant to work. What these guys did is they made the decision to stop climbing alone. And here's the moment that actually matters. Both of these owners from opposite sides made their way to the same place. And that place is what I like to call base camp. Base camp. And they made the decision that things have to change. They stopped trying to climb it alone. They reached out, they signed up, and this is the part that most people never actually do. And it's the secret to everyone's success, is that they showed up. They started climbing with a guide who'd been up this mountain before. And all they had to do was show up. And the next part, they did the work. See, making the decision's one thing, but showing up is a totally other. And then once you do show up, what they did was they did the work. Now, let's just talk about that for a second. Because if you're there right now and you've already got a bunch of time that you're putting into something and you're not getting the wins, I would imagine me saying you showing up and doing the work is going, oh my God, there's more things to do. It's not like that. See, at Foodie Coaches, we learned really early on, it's not about doing more. It's just about doing less and doing more of the right things. So it's about replacing stuff that isn't serving us to actually getting back on the path and walking the path that others have walked without doing any extra work. It's just changing the way we do work. And once we do that work, well, the next exciting thing is that you get a win. And once we get that win, we know something's going to happen. From there, those wins start to stack. And eventually, it's about stacking a bunch of small wins, and eventually people reach the top. The place neither of them could get to on their own, but they find themselves there quite quickly, no matter how many hours you can put in at the bottom. And that's what this video is about. Two real owners. One was losing time so badly he was missing his kids grow up. And the other was losing $49,000 a year out of the business he couldn't see clear enough because he was at the bottom. Both standing at the bottom of the same mountain. And 5 weeks after they decided to stop climbing alone, both of them were somewhere completely different. And this is what this climb looks like. So the first session inside the Elite Mastermind is called the kickoff call. And I want to tell you what it isn't first, because most people expect something it's not. It's not a strategy session. It's not a deep dive into your P&L or into your team. And we're not going to ask you to screen share spreadsheets on the day one and pick them apart in front of a room full of strangers. So what we do first is something that most business programs skip entirely, is that we talk. Not about your business, but about you. We ask the extra day question. We ask in a room with other owners, people who are in the exactly the same trenches as you are. Because something interesting happens when a group of hospitality owners actually answers questions honestly. People start saying things like, I'd take my kids to the beach. I haven't done that in 2 years. I'd sleep. I know that sounds pathetic, but I'd just actually sleep. I'd work on the business instead of in it. I haven't had the headspace to think strategically since I can remember. I'd go to my daughter's school event. I've missed every single one this year. And here's what those answers tell us. They tell us what someone is actually working towards. It's not their revenue target. It's not their EBITDA, their profit. It's not their 5-year plan. It's the real thing. It's the thing that made them go into the business in the first place. And that sense that if I build this right, I get to live differently. And that's what we're anchoring to, because every decision we make together after that, every strategy, every priority, every hard conversation, it all points back to that answer. Otherwise, you're just optimizing a cage that's been built by you. We also do something else in that kickoff that sounds almost confrontational. We ask people to pick a core value, not ours, theirs. And we share a set of statements and ask which one lands the hardest. Things like, I have excuses or I have results, nothing in between. The numbers are the only truth. I'm 100% responsible for where my business is right now and for changing it. Those aren't motivational posters. They're diagnostic tools. The one that resonates the hardest usually tells you exactly where the work needs to happen. The person who chooses, I'm 100% responsible. They've been blaming external things. The economy, the staff, the landlord. They know it. You know it. Even if they've never said it out aloud. The person who chooses numbers are the only truth. They've been avoiding their numbers. We know that. Running on gut feelings and bank balances and just terrified of what their P&L actually says. I know it, I've been there too. The person who chooses excuses or results, they know they've been stolen. They know what needs to be done. And they've been finding reasons not to do it for potentially years. So the kickoff is where we name those things out loud in a room with other people who are doing the same thing, our peers. And because of that, something shifts. when you say it out loud, when you admit it to yourself in front of a group of people who aren't judging you for it because they're on the same journey, it stops being a secret you carry in your hidden backpack full of everything else. It becomes the starting point of change, right? So you've had that conversation. You've named what you actually want and you've picked your core value. Now comes the part that most people dread, and we call it get time back. And it starts with a simple time audit. The next few days, 3, 4, you track every single thing you do, every task, every interruption, every decision that you make along the way. And guess what? You log it. And then you run the numbers. And I'm gonna give you the formula today. Based on your revenue, your time, and your role in the business, what is 1 hour of your time actually worth? And then how much of your time is spent on a task worth that amount? So let me give you the hypothetical. An owner runs a deli in the CBD, co-owns it with a partner, kid at home, and a really amazing partner that they miss, working every single service. Their value sits around $50 to $55 an hour. Now, they look at how they're spending their day, opening the shop, running the morning service, frying chicken, closing, repeat. The business needs that work done, but doesn't need them to do it. That's the question. Because a trained team member can fry chicken for, I don't know, $20 an hour. The owner doing it isn't spending their time. They're spending the gap between what they're worth and what the task is worth every single shift. And then there's the owner working 14 hours a day across 3 different venues. Their problem isn't time. It's money. Food costs sitting at 45%. Well, revenue is there. The work ethic is definitely there. You cannot argue that hospitality owners aren't the hardest working people in every room, but the profit is disappearing somewhere between the kitchen and the bottom line. And they can't find it. Same process, different problem, same result. For the first time they can see it. Here's what I find fascinating about this module. It's not a complex concept. Just track your time, run the numbers, look at what you're doing versus what you should be doing. But almost nobody does this before joining us because it requires you to stop. And hospitality owners don't stop. You go. You put your head down, you work the service, you solve the crisis, you go home, you sleep, you get up, and you do it all over again. There's a particular type of exhaustion that comes from never stopping. To look at a machine you're running. This is the first time most people actually stop and look. And it's confronting, but it's also, and I say this from having watched it hundreds of times over and over again, it's the first moment of real hope many of these owners have had in years, because problems you can see, you can fix. It's the invisible ones that destroy businesses. So that's week 1. What happens in week 2 and week 3? So now we've done our audit and we know what your time is worth and you know what your time is worth. And now we want to know where you're going. This is where we sit down with your coach and we start looking at your numbers and we build the plan. See, we don't want to build a plan if you don't have time to build a plan because it just doesn't work. And we call it the game plan call. It's very specifically designed to build some strategies, okay? Not general strategies, but strategies specific for your venue, on your numbers, on your team, on your constraint. Not just general for any business anywhere, because we know every business in hospitality is unique and different. So what are the 3 to 5 things, if you change them, would move the needle the most in the next 90 days? For an owner who's stuck on the tools, identify the tasks eating the most amount of hours, find who on your current team can take them, and have a conversation with them this week. And we can just start handing them over. For an owner with cost of goods sold as a problem, we just figure out the top 10 best-selling items and recost them. And let's find out which ones actually make you more money and which ones are quietly costing you money. And then we fix the pricing and the portions or the sourcing, whatever the data says. And for an owner losing money on labor, we look at the rostering model. We look at the revenue targets. We know how it's always been done, but we just figure out a more efficient way. So that's where the game plan call is all about taking everything what the audit reveals and turning it into a step-by-step map, your treasure map. That's what I want to emphasize, your treasure map. The plan is built around that extra day answered. Whatever you said you wanted, the beach, the school, the events, the sleep, the headspace, whatever transformation you and your family are looking for, that's the destination and that's how we run our business. So everything in the plan is navigated towards that spot. Because if the plan doesn't point to something that you're really passionate about, what's going on in here for you personally. You won't do it, and you won't stick with it when it gets hard. And I promise you it will get hard. Not because the work's complicated. Actually, it's really easy, but because changing you and your business means a change of habits. And those habits don't change without pressure, the pressure from us. And that pressure, that accountability from my team, your cohort, and the commitment that you made out loud on that kickoff call, that's what makes the difference between the people who try things and the people who actually change things and get the results that they've always looked for. So, what happens from week 3 to week 4? Well, to be honest, that's the hard part. And it's not a negative thing, but I just want to talk to you about something that doesn't get mentioned enough in content like this. And the middle is hard. It always is. Week 3 to week 4, a couple of things that happen. See, you get energized on the kickoff call because you had energy, and then you built the plan and you get excited. But now you have to go back to the actual business and solve actual problems and then do the actual work. And to be honest, your business doesn't care. Your business doesn't care about you, nor do your team. And now that you've had the breakthrough, your head chef is still going to call in sick. Your margins are still going to be tight. You're still going to be dealing with the same customers. You're still going to be tired. And the plan that we made might look different, but when you're standing in the kitchen at 6:30 in the morning or 6:30 at night in the middle of peak, there is a point where people used to fall away. And we know that because we've dealt with thousands upon thousands of people through this program. And we've known what they've had before they've had a program. We've known what they've had before they've had a coach. And we've known what they had before they're in a room of owners like you going through the same thing at the exact same time. So in those weeks, what keeps people moving forward isn't motivation, because we know motivation is totally unreliable. It's like a gym membership. It spikes, it fades, you get distracted, and you can't build a business on motivation alone. It's why people fail. So what keeps people moving is structure and accountability. Your coach checks in. The group chat is alive. You've got momentum, and you've got a momentum call coming up. And you know that you're going to be asked, what the have you done? And I want to say something about the accountability piece. So we know hospitality owners spend a lot of time being misunderstood, underestimated by landlords, by banks, by people who don't understand this industry. Sometimes by their own families, by their own partners, by their kids, by their parents. But in this program, you're surrounded by people who actually know how hard it is to do what you do every single day, and who will hold you to the standard of what you're capable of. Not what you've been settling for, but what you're capable of. And that's really important. So what's the middle look like? It's not perfect. It's not always smooth, but it's about support. Supporting you to get you to the best version of yourself and conquer this journey. Then comes week 5, the momentum call. This is the call I genuinely look forward to the most, because this is where we stop talking about what people are going to do and we hear what they've already done. I want to paint a picture of what those calls actually sound like, because if you haven't been in a room, virtually or otherwise, with a group of hospitality owners who have just had their first real wins, who have just turned around the ship, you've missed something. And these aren't polished testimonials. They're not rehearsed. They're just people reporting back on what 5 weeks worth of work have achieved for them and their business. One person, dad, young kid at home running a food venue in the city, working every single service, tells the group that he's delegated the early mornings and the late night shifts. He's restructured how the work gets done. And in the past few weeks, he's done school drop-offs, not once, not twice, but multiple times. Now, his business was already doing really well, but progress over perfection were his exact words. Delegate even if the quality isn't perfect at first, and then train and improve. 20 to 25 hours a week he got back. And the thing that got me, it wasn't just the hours. It was the way he said it. Like, he almost couldn't believe that it was allowed. Like, he'd been waiting for the business to fall apart when he stepped back. And you know what? It didn't. It kept going. And believe it or not, it actually ran better. And that's exactly what's going to happen to your business if you're working it all the time right now. Because he stopped being the single point of failure. Another owner, 3 businesses, another young family, doing quite well financially, working 14-hour days with food costs, which were just tearing up the bottom line a little bit. And he got back 5 to 7 hours a week by training a team member to take over the frontline prep work, because he'd been doing it himself. The tasks he was too capable for, but couldn't seem to let go. And we'll have that at all levels of our business. But the number that changed his life, he implemented a small upselling change at the front counter, just adding a drink on, bit of sauce, simple prompts for the team, not hard stuff. And his average spend went from $28 to somewhere between 30 and 33. Now, I want you to do the maths on that. How many transactions do you have a week? Take those transactions and times that by $5. Then take off whatever your food costs are, call it, even if it's 40%, doing 1,000 transactions a week. It's a lot of money going straight to your bottom line. So what we did was his coach did that calculation live on the call. That single change applied consistently across all of his business is now worth approximately $49,000 a year. Might not be much to you, but what could you do inside your business? And this is a business that this guy was already running. We didn't bring in any new customers. There was no shiny marketing campaign. We didn't even touch his menu yet. We just had better conversations at the front counter. And he rated that call an 8 out of 10. Wasn't even a 10 for him. So I'd hate to think of what 10's gonna look like. But you know what he said after he gave that rating? He was a bit nervous, but he was excited because the first time in a long time, the numbers were showing him something good. And he was actually looking at them. So I want to zoom out here for a second because I think there's something important in both of those stories that's easy to miss if you just focused on the numbers. Those two owners came into this program for totally different reasons. One was losing time, one was losing money or wasn't making the money they wanted to. Underneath both of those problems was the same thing. They were too close to the machine to see what was wrong with it. Now, that's not a criticism, that's not a character flaw, and it's something that we all do. And it's just what happens when you run a hospitality business or any small business. You go into it and then the industry slowly swallows you up. It's physical, it's emotional, and we all know it's relentless. We've done this thousands of times. There's no built-in moment where someone taps you on the shoulder and says, hey, step back for a moment. It's okay. Let's look at this together. And that's what our program does. It taps you on the shoulder. It's someone with the right knowledge sitting across from you saying, we can see what you can't see from where we're standing. And here's what we're going to do about it. Now, I'm not the expert. I'm not the genuine guy who's gone and done the thing and say, go and do my thing. I'm the guy that has just built a phenomenal community of hospitality owners from around the world who are all invested in the same thing, winning and watching each other win. And from that, we know the strategies, we know the solutions because we've done it so much. So every single person who joins the Elite Mastermind knew what they were working towards. They had an answer to an extra day question. They just couldn't get there alone. Not because they weren't smart enough, not because they weren't working hard enough. It's just because everyone's been doing it without a map, without accountability, and without people around them who actually understood what they were navigating day to day. So the first 5 weeks don't fix everything. But what I can promise you is the first 5 weeks changes the trajectory of your entire life and your business. And in hospitality, where margins are the tightest they've ever been, the hours are brutal and everyone's telling you the industry is impossible, changing the trajectory of your business and your life will mean everything. So let me come back to where we started. That question, that very first question. If you had an extra day a week, what would you do with it? If you pause just now and you actually think about it in depth, if something came up to you that you haven't let yourself think for a while, that pause is information. It's telling you that you want something different than what you currently have. And that's not a weakness. That's not ingratitude. You can love your business and still want it to work better. And you can be proud of what you already built, but you still know it's costing you more than what it should by not being where you want to be. And the owners I told you about today, they're definitely not special cases. They're not outliers. They're not anyone different. They're just what happens when someone who's been running hard and running alone finally gets the support that they deserve. So if you want to know more about what support looks like, and it doesn't matter if you're already crushing it and you want to crush more or you need more help, or how the program works, whether it's right for you, whether it's right for you and your business, or what the investment is, just click the link below. There's no hard sell. No one's going to chase you down and hold a gun to your head saying, buy my stuff. He's going to have a conversation with one of our team. And we're going to look at your business together. We're actually going to tell you honestly, probably more honest than what anyone else has been to you in your entire career, whether or not we think we can help and whether or not it's possible. That's it. But before you click anything, I want you to sit with that question 1 second longer. An extra day. What would you do with it? Because the answer, that's the whole point. This isn't about numbers. This is about a transformation. Click link below, talk to one of my team, I never see you on the inside.